Good afternoon. Today I'd like to speak to you about the miracle power of Archangel Michael and what he can do in our lives, in your life, in my life, and in the world as a whole. I'd like to share a few stories of his miracle intercession that directly benefited my life and the life of my family. And before I do that, I wanted to explain to you a little bit about Archangel Michael. He is the Archangel of the will of God. He is the Archangel of faith and protection and goodwill. And he was the one that the highest levels of the heaven world, beloved Alpha and Omega, sent to cast the fallen angels out of heaven when they rebelled against God and his creation, the creation of man. So Archangel Michael has been with us for a very long time, and he is known as the defender of the faith. He is also known in all of the religions of Christianity and Judaism and Islam. And he is a very, very special archangel. In fact, he's even known in the Zoroastrian tradition. So, Archangel Michael. When I was a little girl and I would visit my grandparents in France after I'd moved to the United States, they took me to see Mont Saint-Michel, which is the mountain of Saint Michael on the west coast of France. And I read recently how Archangel Michael had inspired the person who began building that mountain. And the person had several visions of Archangel Michael in dreams, and he did not believe it was real. He wasn't sure. And so finally, Archangel Michael, in the last dream, pressed his thumb very strongly on the forehead of the person. And I'm sorry, I don't remember his name right now, but he woke up with a dent in his head. And he began building the Mount Saint-Michel. Archangel Michael is very much a part of the Catholic tradition, of course. And I discovered and learned even more about him when I found the teachings of the Ascended Masters in South America and then in North America. Now, he invites us to invoke his protection every day by simply giving a little mantra that says, Lord Michael before, Lord Michael behind, Lord Michael to the right, Lord Michael to the left, Lord Michael above, Lord Michael below, Lord Michael, wherever I go. I am his love protecting here. I am his love protecting here. I am his love protecting here. You can also simply say, Archangel Michael, help me, help me, help me, help me. You can say, Archangel Michael, help my children, help my family. You can send him into everything that you see in the news or in the world that you find needs divine resolution. And so, a number of years ago, my sister and I were driving in eastern Montana on a very, very snowy road. It was extremely icy. We were getting very sleepy, and there was no cars in sight because the highway had been practically closed except for trucks. And at some point, we drifted off to sleep and drifted off of the road into a big ravine. And we were about 10 feet down from the road or more in a huge snowbank that was at least 3 feet high. And I called to Archangel Michael for help. There was no one on the road, and I knew our car had only so much gas left and that we were likely going to freeze to death that night. And within minutes of calling to Archangel Michael for help, a very friendly man showed up in a tow truck with country music playing, and he said, "You tell your sister to come here and warm up." And I hadn't even told him we were sisters. And then he said, "You're lucky I'm here today because not even highway patrol is out tonight." And he happened to have a tow rope, and he pulled us out of the ditch. Then we drove about 10 or 15 miles further into Miles City, the town, the next town. And he said, "I hope you don't mind if I'm following you." I said, "No, please." He says, "You girls have to get a hotel room." I said, "Yes, absolutely." And as we were about to enter Miles City, his headlights, which had been following us in the tow truck behind us, disappeared. The truck disappeared. It all disappeared. And I drove that road many times again, both in summer and in winter, and there was no exit where the truck disappeared. So that was one of my encounters with Archangel Michael. Another very important encounter I had was when I was about 20, in my 20s, in my young early 20s, and I went rafting down the Yellowstone River with friends, and I was not wearing a life jacket, and we were tubing. We were actually tubing on large tubes. And all of a sudden, the current took me to a different part of the river, and I found myself sucked into a giant whirlpool. It was at least 10 to 12 feet high. It was a good 3 feet at least over my head, and I'm almost 6 foot tall. And I had made calls to Archangel Michael that morning, prayers for his intercession and protection. And the inner tube flew away, and that was, the way it bounced off the whirlpool. And I found myself struggling with every ounce of strength I had to come up out of the whirlpool, and there was no doing. And I struggled beyond any physical breath I even had. And finally I said, "God," I said, "I'm sorry the fallen angels have gotten me. The dark forces, I'm done. I couldn't struggle anymore. I couldn't try to swim up anymore." And I surrendered my life. And at that moment, time and space spliced for me like an old reel of tape where you would cut and paste. And I found myself about 30 feet away from the whirlpool on the top of the river. And I know for a fact that my body never went from bottom to top. It was like somebody who was watching this said an angel had picked you up and carried you to another point, except I didn't even feel the travel time. And so there I was at the top of the river, away from the whirlpool, and saved. And I attribute this to Archangel Michael. Over the years, we had many deer hit our car. And every time I would travel, I would call to Archangel Michael for protection. And we never had a huge problem with that. Sometimes we got a dent in the car. Sometimes the deer had a problem, but we were safe. In fact, one time there was such a loud thud that I pulled the car over. It was behind me. The deer had jumped, because these deer would jump from all these directions, and you couldn't control it, You didn't even see them sometimes, especially at night. I heard a loud thud, and it was such a loud thud and a shock on the car, I thought for sure we have a major dent in the back door of the van that I was driving. Got out, looked at the door, there was not a scratch. Then my son, who just started college yesterday, when he was a little boy, he went to play with some friends. He was like maybe 3 or 4 years old, probably closer to 3. And he was out playing in an area where there can be rattlesnakes, though they're not that common, but they are around. And when we dropped him off, we said, before dropping him off, we said, make sure you say your prayers to Archangel Michael. And we said this prayer with him. Lord Michael before, Lord Michael behind, Lord Michael to the right, Lord Michael to the left, Lord Michael above, Lord Michael below, Lord Michael, wherever I go. And when I picked him up that night, brought him home, he was crying. He said, the snake bit me, the snake bit me. I said, where? What are you talking about? And there were 2 large rattlesnake bite wounds in his neck. And the doctor later said to me, do you realize how fortunate he is? He would have died had that snake put any venom in his skin, injected any venom in his neck. It was a dry bite. 2 fangs right on his neck. I couldn't believe it. I knew that was once again the intercession of Archangel Michael, who we often see defeating the snake and the dragon in his many paintings and statues. And when I was young and lived in Paris, Archangel Michael is everywhere in the heart of Paris. So, fast forward a few more years, I had 3 major car accidents where, not of my fault, trucks of every size hit me. I was hit from the side, on the driver's side, 60 miles an hour. Car was completely totaled, and I walked out alive by the grace of God. Then I was hit another year or so later by a semi-truck on the highway who didn't see my car. Hit me from behind, my car folded up like an accordion, and I walked out alive. And the policeman said, do you know how many people get hit by a semi and walk out alive? And then more recently, an enormous truck that was carrying a bulldozer. It was like an 18-wheeler or something that looked like 3 major trucks in one, came and turned upon me. And I saw the giant truck, and I was a few inches from being completely crushed. I put out my hand. I said, stop. But I had made my calls to Archangel Michael, and the car once again was totaled, and I walked out alive. So I'm explaining all of these situations to you because the intercession of Archangel Michael is a very real thing, and we can invoke it for ourselves and for our loved ones, and we can invoke it on the planet. We can send Archangel Michael to help souls. He can also help those who, and take the souls of those who have had to leave embodiment into the higher octaves of light. We must never leave our home without calling to Archangel Michael. Lord Michael before, Lord Michael behind, Lord Michael to the right, Lord Michael to the left, Lord Michael above, Lord Michael below, Lord Michael, wherever I go. He is known as the Prince of the Archangels, as the Captain of the Lord's hosts. Those are some of his titles. I had a friend who was a police officer, and she was shot in the head, and she had just made prayers to Archangel Michael, and the bullet went through and saved her life, spared her life, I should say, spared her life. So, that being said, let us call now to Archangel Michael, because there are so many situations on the planet where we need his help. From the wars in the Middle East, to the economy, to the trafficking of children, to children being missing, to babies in the womb who need to be born alive. So many situations where Archangel Michael is a defender of the woman and her seed. Certainly want to send him to the White House right now, and to the Capitol, and to the Supreme Court, and I do so every day. At a certain point, when we're dealing with the forces of evil that are rampant on the world today, we must call to his intercessory protection. And he works hand in glove with Jesus and Mother Mary and the many saints of heaven who are also known as ascended masters.